Welcome to our Sound for Video session. Today is the 15th of July, 2017. This time we're going to take a look at a little mix that I've been working on. It's a commercial for Garmin exercise tracking watches. And let me just play through for you what I have so far. This is a draft mix. I'm not done. But I want to talk about just some of the things I've learned so far. And if some of you have experience doing mixes of this sort, I'd love to get your feedback as well. All right, let's take a look and a listen. All right, that's what we've got so far. Let me just kind of walk through each of the different pieces here in terms of layout and what I've done for each element of the mix overall. First of all, of course, we have our video reference just so I can see what I'm working with here. And then our first thing that we did is garage tone. So I actually went out to a parking garage in nearby here and went at an hour when it was kind of late in the afternoon. Well, I would say maybe 3:30 p.m. in the afternoon on a Friday. So there wasn't a lot of traffic. I got onto a floor of the parking garage. It didn't have a lot of traffic and just got this tone. And let's just solo this and let you listen to this. And that's what we have there. So that was just sort of our first piece we put down there just to kind of, again, to set the tone for the sense of space. The next thing we did was footsteps. And while we were also in that garage, I had a couple friends come along with me. And they were very kind to do some footsteps and some jumps and some other sounds that we're going to look at here in just a few minutes. Joe Norby, thank you for that. And Ben Cragen, thanks for helping out on that. This is what we have here for footsteps. And again, I just laid these in to sync up with the actual picture. Now they sound a little out of context. You have some garage tone there as well, the sort of swooshing sound. But once you mix them in, and I used these, I faded each clip in and out. So hopefully that sits okay within the mix. I also added a reverb here to this particular track, just again, because I'm trying to blend it in with the rest of the other elements here. Next up, we have our jumps. Let me just solo that for you here really quick. Now you'll notice this one here was quite a bit louder. That was actually in response to the music. At that point, there's it's sort of right on a beat, the way that Levi Whitney, my friend who shot all this and cut it, he cut right on the beat, specifically when his feet hit the ground. So I really wanted to emphasize that one. So you can see here, we actually bumped that one up by 15 dB, just this particular clip. So there we go on the jumps. Next up, we have some water drips, and I have two things. I have a water drip and a water drip ambiance. And the idea here was that visually you can see at some point there's some water dripping, and I used this track to try and fill that out a little bit. And then I have this water ambiance track to just that sits down lower in the mix with more reverb on it that is just sort of to fill things in a little bit as well. So let's just solo those two here really quick. This one's going to still need some work. You can see this one's still pretty rough here. And in fact, I'm not sure how I'm going to manage this. I may put this all into one track. Well, probably not. I've got more reverb on this one, but I need to have smoother transitions between them. So there's still some work in progress there. This was an asset that I actually bought. It was a dripping water in a cave, and I bought it from soundeffects.com.net, not sure. Wherever Rick Veers puts his audio is where I got it. Next up we have our kettlebell that he sets down at the start here. Let me just show you that real quick. Okay, that was actually a recording that I made, and that was what I use is a dumbbell free weight, and set it down on some concrete. I set it down kind of gently on its side to make that same noise, and then I added a reverb on this particular track as well, again to kind of give it a sense of space, put it in its room, and hopefully make it sound convincing as well. What's interesting that I found, actually, and we'll come up to that in just a second here. I'll come back to that topic, my thought here, getting ahead of myself. Next up, we have the push-ups, and this is my friend Joe that did this. Okay, when we were recording that, I was thinking, man, he's just overdoing it here, too much. And my friend Ben actually said, "Whoa, dude, slow down. It's like just push-ups. It's not like the Olympics or anything." So we had him record it both ways, and it actually ended up I used the more extreme versions. When you're doing sound design and Foley and things of that nature, it seems like sometimes to convey the right sound, the right feel, you kind of have to emphasize it quite a bit. So that's what we ended up doing there. And that surprised me a little bit. Same with the grunts here too. This one is interesting. You can see we added a reverb there too. And this is where, again, Ben and I were both like, gosh, it's just a small kettlebell. It's not that big. So don't go all out. But it ended up that the kind of the more extreme grunts seemed to fit pretty nicely, especially once you mixed it in with everything else. So maybe a lesson learned there, I guess. We have some breathing here that we wanted to emphasize as well. And then at the end. And we put a pretty heavy reverb on there, you can see here. In terms of the dry mix, we bumped it down to 70 and the wet mix up to 62. Wet mix is the reverb itself. Dry mix is the original sound, just so you get a sense. This, I think, starts at 100 or close to 100, the dry, and the wet is something like 5 or 10% by default. But we definitely bumped it up quite a bit to kind of really put a wash on it. This is where a reverb can be really helpful to kind of help it fit into a mix, especially in a parking garage where there's natural reverb. All right, next, at the end of the piece, we have this delay on the music. Let's just play that for you. Now, normally I would use a delay on that. I actually found that this echo plugin in Audition worked pretty nicely. And then on top of that, you can see kind of an echo bounce. You can kind of do some stereo modeling on that as well. And maybe actually I will. It kind of does some funny things, but in any case, ended up using the echo as opposed to a delay. A delay is oftentimes what you might use there to get that kind of repeating effect. And then we put a reverb on top of that, again, to kind of wash it. And then the music, I did use an EQ to kind of scoop out the middle. I know musicians hate to see this kind of thing, but you've got to make room in a mix for your other effects if you really want to, if you're going to design the sound and get the feel that you want. So please don't tell all our musician friends. We did scoop pretty severely out of the middle of that music track there. But I think overall it helps it to sit a little bit better. So there's an example of mixing, and another example, we've actually covered this a couple of times before, but it's been fun for me to learn some things. Some other things that I learned along the way. I think I had mentioned this on one of the Sound for Video sessions a while back. I did add to my kit see if I can get this up here. The Presonus Faderport, which is a single fader, motorized fader actually, and control surface that works. It's originally designed and, well, it's made by Presonus, which makes Studio One, a digital audio workstation, but it also works with Audition now. Audition has had full support for it, and it has a variety of, obviously the motorized fader is really nice, so I can automate things, and in fact I should come back and show you that we did end up automating some things. If that's a term you're not familiar with, what automation means is that you use a fader to either adjust the volume in real time. So as the track is playing, you're moving the fader and it's recording all of that. So it will play it back and essentially reapply that fader move as you play back. I can show you here on the breathing track. I know we did that. I'll drop it down here. You can see here, so we started off at -11, and then at the end when we have that heavy breathing, kind of like I'm done with my exercise routine and I'm kind of breathing it out, then we faded up until we got back to -0.2 dB. So kind of faded that in. That's one thing I did with it here. It also incidentally makes it nice so you can change some things here. And actually, since I unplugged it, you have to restart Audition if you unplug it. So we'll have to come back to that. But the breathing I did certainly the music. You can definitely tell that at the start we kind of faded in, and you could definitely hear that. There's sort of a steady fade in. Now you can do this with a keyboard, but for me, it's really kind of I like doing it with a fader. The tactile experience of moving it up. Everyone has a different opinion about that. I talked to some people when I was at NAB who do a fair bit of mixing, and some of them said, yeah, I had that Presonus Faderport, it's really great. And so I was just curious about it. I was asking them some questions, and this one guy said, yeah, I have it, and I love it, but I never use it. So it really depends on your style. I find it especially useful when you're trying to duck music between dialogue. You can automate that stuff too. And by automation, I guess that's confusing. You can use plugins that automatically do that for you that will respond to sound on another channel using sidechain and things of that nature. So it just depends on how you like to work. I really have enjoyed using this, and I like the experience, and it seems to be working for me. What were some other things here? I think those are the main ones that we did automation on. Oh, the water drip, I think we did some automation on that as well. Again, at the end, we were trying to fade it up a bit so that it became more prominent once you went to the final screen with the Garmin logo. I wanted everyone to feel the ambiance and to hear that heavy breathing post-workout. So that's what we have so far. I think that covers everything I wanted to cover today. I'd love to have your questions, or again, if you have more experience mixing things like this, would love to get your input as well. We probably have to deliver before most of you will have an opportunity to give input, but just in terms of learning and improving for the future, would love to hear what you have to say. So hope that was helpful for everybody. Get out there and make some great recordings. We'll talk to you again next week.